Welcome to another session. Today, we're going to be talking about quantum relationships and how to align our energy for connection and how to become aware of what's happening when we are relating to others. This is a part of the Quantum Living series that I have been doing for the last few weeks. And it's another fascinating conversation that I want to initiate with you guys. So until now, we have been talking a lot about our own energy, our belief systems, how we are responsible for everything that happens outside of us. And today, I want to really look at. We also look at generational trauma and things that we maybe collected and are carrying from past generations, from that are not ours from this life. So today I really want to look at quantum relationships. So what's happening when we are relating with other people and what is the quantum perspective of that? And I think it's a really interesting topic because when we are relating to others, everything gets amplified and whatever is inside of us gets activated. And there are a few laws that we can talk about. The first one is the law of resonance. Basically, that says that whatever you are vibrating at, and remember, vibration is always when you are feeling something, when there is an emotion that has a vibration, and that vibration is going to get in resonance with something alike. So you are going to attract. And then the law of attraction is the one that says that you are going to attract something similar. So like attracts like. So depending on your emotional state, you are going to be attracting something similar. You are going to be unconsciously looking for something similar. And when we talk about relationships and the dynamics that are forming, the dynamics that you find yourself participating in, that's also like an energetic exchange, and you are going to be participating in an energetic connection. Sometimes that's conscious, sometimes that's unconscious. Okay. Perfect timing. As just sat down for late lunch. Amazing, Marjorie. Hi, Jacqueline and BD. Hi, Sati. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah. So the first thing that I think is interesting is that thinking about relationships are energetic classrooms. So it's a place where we go to learn, to master, right? To become aware. And I like the idea of going to learn, because that brings curiosity, that brings the willingness to be aware, the willingness to look at what is happening here in this relationship. And then what gets activated between two people is often older than the present moment. I really like that too. So what gets activated between two people, many times it is older than the present moment that you are in. So basically you are bringing story, you are bringing triggers, you are bringing your past basically, and you are reacting to the present moment with that information. So that's really interesting, right? And then also the idea that triggers are not mistakes. Triggers are information, and they are an opportunity, an invitation for you to look at something. So it's an invitation for you to learn something new about yourself and to learn how to navigate this energetic exchange in a more aligned way, in a way that feels better for you. So many times the reframe of this is that the interaction that is happening, okay, is showing me something about my inner world. Yeah. So I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts about this? Why were you curious to attend in today's live about quantum relationships? What would you like to learn, or what is present for you about this topic? If you are willing to share in the comments, I will be happy to read some of the things that you guys are bringing to the session too, so that it's not just me talking. Okay, I do have a lot of things I want to talk about and share, but I also want to give space for you guys to bring whatever is alive in you about this topic, okay? So feel free to share at any time. So I would like to talk more about the triggers, right? And what happens when we are feeling triggered. And remember, triggers are not, they are just information. Ideally, they are not destinations that we stay in. So ideally, we don't get stuck in the trigger and that becomes our place where we are always gonna always react the same way. Ideally, we're gonna use that trigger to learn, to realign, to heal, to reframe, to transform. You can use whatever word suits you, but basically you are going to use that trigger to understand that whatever is happening in that interaction that you are having, it's not serving you. It doesn't feel good for you. And then you are going to use that trigger to really understand what's happening, what do I need, what am I uncovering here about myself, what am I trying to avoid, what am I afraid of, what is this trigger bringing from my past, and maybe it's impacting me and I wasn't aware of that. And then what do I want to choose consciously moving forward? That's why the concept of relationships being like a classroom where we are coming to learn is really beautiful. And it's really a very nice perspective, a very light perspective. Okay, so a trigger is a signal, not a place to live. And the purpose of a trigger is to reveal a belief system that you may have or a story that you're telling yourself, to highlight an unmet need, something that you needed and maybe you didn't get it. And now you are bringing that need to the present moment. And this trigger is showing you that need. Maybe it's pointing a boundary. Maybe it's pointing a boundary that is being crossed, a boundary that is not being met, a boundary that is not being respected. And when that happens, safety gets involved, right? You may feel unsafe. You may feel unseen. You may feel disrespected. So there is always a meaning of what it means, what's happening, has a meaning for you. And that meaning makes you feel something. And that feeling, that emotion creates a vibration. And from a quantum perspective, that vibration is your resonance. You are emitting that vibration into other relationships and you are going to kind of have an impact and attract something similar. And sometimes it's showing a familiar pattern, okay? Sometimes familiarity doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It just means that it's something that you understand. Familiarity sometimes familiarity is no longer serving you, but familiarity feels good and safe and feels comfortable. So familiarity is connected with your comfort zone, right? You are not stretching yourself out of your comfort zone. You are staying in your window of tolerance. And sometimes it's beautiful to be there, but sometimes there is no change happening when you are always in your comfort zone because you are not exposing yourself to something different and you are repeating the same thing over and over, right? So the idea of familiarity and staying in a pattern is something that also it's important to be aware of. So for all those reasons, Emilio, I learned why I am here as I listen to you. Amazing, Peta. It's just a beautiful classroom where we all come and we all get to learn something new and explore new things. That's why I love this series. That's why I love sharing about this, because I always learn so much. Preparing for these lessons is always interesting for me because I have conversations with myself and I use ChatGPT and I use other tools to kind of, what do I want to share? What is important? And what am I living in my life right now, right? What am I being challenged by? And let me tell you that relationships is something that I am being very challenged lately with. So it's a very, very alive topic in me. So that's why I'm very happy to be here talking about this. So something important, right? That is something important that I want to bring is to create some harmony and to find the balance, right? Because sometimes going to the extremes is not helpful. Hola, Anna, welcome. So sometimes there are a couple traps that I want to talk about. The trap number one is spiritual bypass, right? So basically, it's fine. I'm over it. I should be more positive. And then when you do that, energy stays stuck because it's not being expressed. Because the truth that's happening for you in that moment is not being liberated, it's not being expressed, it's not being seen. And basically, you are repressing that. So this is what's called the spiritual bypass, right? You just don't want to do the work, so you pretend that everything it's all right. And I do this a lot, to be honest. So many times I just say it's fine, because saying that it's not okay requires more work than saying it's fine. When you say it's not okay, then you have to elaborate. You have to really look at what's happening, go deeper. And sometimes going deeper is uncomfortable. And it may bring stuff that you may not understand what to do with, may be painful. So that's the trap number one, okay? Emotional bypass, ignoring what's happening. The trap number two is obsessing about it. It's when you are always thinking about the same thing. So you are replaying conversations, you are overthinking what went wrong, and you are trying to fix the past, right? Attention keeps feeding what you don't want. I'm guilty of that too a lot. Trying to trying to fix things that are not okay according to my lens, right? So very important to become aware of those things. Again, don't use this information to be negative about yourself. Don't use this information to criticize yourself, to put yourself down. Use this information as a learning opportunity. Every time I find myself on either of those scales, I understand, wow, I am being dramatic, I am being obsessed, I am being ignoring this. So I try to come to the center, right? And then what is the middle path? What is the center? So to feel what's happening, to extract the information that you need, and then to decide how you want to shift, how you want to reframe, how you want to change the meaning of the experience, to understand what feels more aligned with you, and then to embody that. Very important, you have to embody that. Because if you don't embody that, if it just stays as a logical decision, nothing is going to change. Because remember, from a quantum perspective, the only thing that matters is how you feel. And how you feel is going to vibrate at a specific frequency, and that's going to impact everything else in your life. So you have to really integrate these things, do the integration work. Yeah. So let me see. It's been a pleasure to travel with your transformation, Emilio. Thank you, BD. Devika says, hey, hi, Emilio. I would like to understand your thoughts on familiarity and just being there rather than not. Yeah, so Devika, familiarity is what you understand, right? When it comes to relationships, if you go back to your birth and you are being born, you are being raised in a household, and then you are going through learning what life is about. Through the people that are raising you, you learn what's okay, what's not okay, how to express love, how to receive love, and then you create an attachment style, right? You learn because you have to attach. Attachment is something that is essential for a baby. You just need people to take care of you. And then you develop an attachment style. And then that attachment style means many things, right? But if you look at attachment, you have the avoidant attachment, you have the anxious attachment, you have the secure attachment, and then you have the disorganized attachment. But basically, you are learning what's normal. You are receiving a download of what life is about, what's okay, what's not okay, who you have to be to make sure that you receive attention and safety. So you create a lot of belief systems, you create a lot of stories about the world, stories about yourself. So many times you are going to repress things about you. So all these things become familiar, okay? They can be familiar patterns. They can be familiar dynamics. It doesn't mean that they are good for you anymore or that they are bad. It's just dynamics that you understand, that you can navigate because you have been exposed to them. So that's what familiarity means. It's something that is known. It's something that feels safe. It's something that is predictable, stable, right? So that's what familiarity is all about. And then challenging that sometimes is necessary because familiarity is not always good. It's not always the best for you. If you have the familiarity of being with a person that is always avoidant, for example, and that's what you understand, and that what feels familiar for you, it doesn't mean that that is the best for you. It doesn't mean that is the most aligned approach for you right now. But that's what you understand. So if you were to be with a person that is not avoidant, you are going to have a completely different experience. And then you are going to need to learn what that is like. That's why the concept going to the classroom and learning is so important. So did I answer your question? Do you understand what it means, familiarity, and why sometimes it's okay to be there, but why sometimes it's important and necessary to challenge the familiarity, especially when it is painful. It's familiar and painful. It's familiar, comfortable, and it just doesn't feel right anymore for you. It doesn't feel aligned with you anymore. And that's when it is more painful to stay where you are than to take a change. And that's when a crisis happens. That's when you make a decision that you couldn't do before. And that's when this process of energetic realignment may happen. This is why the midlife crisis is so, everybody goes through a midlife crisis, right? And sometimes that's what it means. You are challenging the familiarity of your life and you are becoming someone else that feels more aligned with who you are. Sometimes it takes 40, 50 years to do that. Sometimes you may do that work before. So I hope that this is helpful. But yeah, remember that the words that we use, sometimes the same word can have a completely different meaning for each of you. So don't get stuck in the words and really connect with the energetic of it. Okay? Isn't it true when one partner needs something, it requires the other partner to have to give, sacrifice? AJ, yes. And this is an example of a dynamic, right? It takes two people to form a dynamic, right? If you have a person that needs something, it's very difficult sometimes to really describe and define the difference between something that you want, something that you need, something that you truly need. Sometimes it's something that you prefer, but it's not a need. But sometimes that need is gonna be met with someone who is willing to give it, of course. But what happens, like if both people are consciously choosing that, that's fine. It's a conscious decision. But many times in relationships, from a quantum perspective, we are engaging in energetic exchanges where we are not really conscious of what's happening. We are maybe repeating a pattern. We are maybe being triggered by something and reacting to it. And then that's when it can become unhealthy. It can become something that is no longer serving you. It's no longer supporting your true self anymore. And that's when you want to break that dynamic because you no longer want to participate in that. Sarah says, "Hey Emilio, I just wanted to say that I absolutely love you and your work. You're amazing. Keep doing." Thank you so much, Sarah. AJ says, "Your thoughts on being in a narcissist relationship?" So again, AJ, when we label something as a narcissist, that contains a lot of dynamics, right? And again, it takes two people to create a narcissistic relationship, okay? Um, so many times familiarity, unfortunately, familiarity makes people stay in unhealthy dynamics because they have not been exposed to something different. Um, and again, it's not right or wrong. It's always a choice. Many times, sadly, it's an unconscious choice that we are making for ourselves, not fully understanding why. And this is why this work and these conversations can really shine the light on something that will help you make a different choice, that will help you recognize what do you want, what feels good, what do you want to embody. And then that's going to help you a lot to get out of a place where you don't no longer want to be there anymore. Yeah, so I want to bring the concept of contrast, right? Because when you are in a relationship and you are experiencing something that you don't like, so let's use the formula that we talked about before. So you don't want to bypass it and ignore it and pretend that everything is okay, but you also don't want to stay stuck in there and obsess about it. You want to find the common ground, kind of the middle path, right? So the contrast is something that is going to help you create clarity, right? So when something hurts you, when something is no longer working for you, you will ask yourself, what don't I want to experience anymore? Just ask yourself, what's happening that I no longer want to experience anymore? What does this clarify about what I do want? And then what value or need is being highlighted? Okay, so some examples. Maybe you are feeling dismissed and you have the desire to be seen. Maybe you are feeling unsafe. That's what you don't want. And then you feel the desire for stability and safety. And then you may be feeling controlled and you may feel and experience the desire for autonomy. Maybe you are feeling unchosen and then you are craving, have the desire for mutual commitment. Okay? So the trigger that you may be experiencing is the seat of that desire. So the trigger is going to give you the information that you need to become clear about what you want. And then hopefully that seat is starting to grow. And then you are going to become clear about, I no longer want this. So what do I want instead? And how can I embody that? And that's when, from a quantum perspective, where attention goes, energy flows. And that's why you don't want to get stuck in what you don't want. You want to focus your attention in what you do want. But for you sometimes to understand what is it that you want, you have to experience something that you don't want, so that helps you understand, wow, I don't want this, so I want this instead. And that's going to help you start embodying something different. So if you, for example, no longer want to be in a relationship where maybe you have a partner that has a narcissistic tendency and you no longer choose that, so what do you choose instead? And how can you show up as that new version of you that is not choosing that dynamic, is not participating, it is not allowing anymore? And then you choose that, and that's how you heal, that's how you realign, that's how you move forward differently. And that's why a relationship is necessary. It's a really beautiful classroom for you to learn all these things, because if you are alone, you may not even see these things because they will not happen. So that's why quantum relationships is a wonderful opportunity for you to become clear, to learn, and then to move forward in a way that feels more aligned, more true to yourself. And remember, from a quantum perspective, there is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. It's infinite amounts of choices and possibilities, and you get to choose what you want. So if you don't want this, choose this instead. But don't get stuck in labeling, judging, criticizing, because everybody makes choices depending where they are. And sometimes a choice that you don't understand makes sense for the other person. So that's why relationships is also about respect and about understanding that we are all in unique journeys. And I don't want to pretend to understand why someone is choosing what they are choosing. Of course, if they are in pain and they're asking for help, of course you can be helpful, but the best that you can do is model you being who you want to be and model how that looks like. And others will see you doing that. And others will understand, wow, this person wants this and they are going for it and they are not accepting this. And I notice how they are setting the boundaries, and I notice how they are saying no, and I notice how they are accepting when they are confused, and I notice how they are feeling what they are feeling, but they don't stay there, they don't remain stuck in there, but they allow themselves to feel it first, and then they become clear, and then they embody something different, and they allow themselves to take a different kind of action. So there are a lot of beautiful things that happen, and sometimes you don't have to force someone else to change, because that's not your job. Okay. Beautifully explained, Emilio. Thank you. I can relate to the feeling of energy exchange. What aligns, what doesn't. Your talk is making me question if we sometimes stick to familiarity due to our attachment style and scared to explore and simply just stay and don't talk about it. Thank you. Yeah, of course. Of course we do that, Devika, because change is difficult. When you are changing and questioning, you are always rocking the boat. And when you change yourself, you are going to face your own resistance to that change. That resistance is fear of something unsafe, fear of something that doesn't feel familiar, maybe fear of failing, fear of not having all the information, etc. So you are facing your own resistance and blockages and limiting beliefs and stories that you tell about yourself. But you are also going to confront how others are going to react. And we are talking today about quantum relationships. So when you choose to change, that's going to have an impact in everyone around you. Because as you can imagine, if you are participating in dynamics with other people and all of a sudden you stop doing that, those other people they will have to change too. They will have to relearn how to interact with you on a different way. Like it or not, that's what's going to happen. So sometimes people may disappear from your life. Sometimes people may come back later. Sometimes people may get closer to you. Sometimes, so you will have all sorts of reactions and all sorts of, basically different kind of energetic connections. And that can be difficult. That can be uncomfortable. That can be, especially if you avoid conflict, if you have a hard time saying no, if you feel that you don't deserve, if you feel unsafe, like all that stuff is going to make you sometimes don't want to change, because change is difficult. So BD says, can you explain the quantum part? What makes it quantum? So the quantum part, BD, is just the energetic aspect of these things, right? The quantum aspect, the quantum part, is looking at this from an energetic point of view, looking at this from an embodiment point of view, understanding that if you want to change something that's happening outside, you don't go outside to change it. You understand that everything that's happening outside of you, in the form of your work, your relationships, the situations that you are attracting, everything is 100% your responsibility. Everything is you are creating or co-creating that. So you don't go outside to change anything. You go inside and you change the way you vibrate. You change the way you feel. And you change the way you feel when you are able to question and challenge your belief systems, your familiarity, the energetic interactions that you are having with others. And you become more clear from that energetic point of view. And you start with yourself. And when you change yourself and you change your boundaries and you change what you want and you become clear about what you don't want, and you are honestly and truthfully communicating that in a respectful but tangible way, everything else is going to change, because there is no way you are going to stay in a place that you don't want to consciously. So that's the quantum perspective. It's the energetic, the vibration, this kind of a little bit esoteric, if you want to call it, point of view. So it's all physics. It's all like quantum physics. It's all believing that everything is energy, everything is vibrating. And then all the law of attraction, the law of resonance, all these laws are talking about just energy, right? So that's the quantum perspective, right? And I like the word, and it makes it look cool, but it's really becoming aware that you have a huge impact in everything that's happening. From a quantum perspective, everything that's happening outside of you, it is a reflection of yourself. It is a reflection of what you are vibrating. This is why it's so important to make sure that you are thinking and telling yourself things that make you feel well. Because if you are approaching the world feeling fear, you are going to evoke something very different than if you are approaching the world feeling gratitude, for example. And again, I'm not trying to tell you to bypass what you are feeling, but use those experiences to gain clarity, and then change to embodying what you want as fast as you can, using the information that you have received. Okay? So what is the quantum mistake to avoid? Okay, what is something not to do? So if I think about this enough, I will fix it. So just using the logic and bypassing all the embodiment piece, it's just not gonna work. Because remember, attention equals energy. When you are sustaining your attention in something, it becomes a pattern. Remember, neurons that fire together wire together. This is neuroplasticity. So basically, when you are repeating something over and over and over, it becomes an energetic dynamic, because you are feeding it with your attention. And then a pattern, it becomes the reality that you are living in. And this is what, when I talk about world occurring views, when I talk about a belief system, it's all this. You are feeding something that you believe to be true, and it becomes your reality. And when you look at the world, you are putting on that lens that says whatever you believe. So if I say all men are unsafe, for example, all women are going to betray me, all, whatever belief system you are doing, you are putting a lens, and then you are going to look at the world from that point of view. Like if I believe that every time I go to my city in Barcelona, I am going to get robbed. Someone is going to come and it's going to grab my bag from behind. It may happen, but that's not the real. I'm choosing to believe that. And I've been in Barcelona for all my life, and it never happened to me. I know people who had that experience, but so you are choosing what to believe, and then you are vibrating, and then you are attracting situations like that. So is this making sense? Are you guys confused still with the quantum perspective and what that means? Marjorie says, how to shift perspective in the moment when triggered, then also analyze and discuss afterwards when calmer. Yeah, so this is what I'm going to talk about. Like, how do we clean our energy? How do we understand the trigger, and how can we ground ourselves and be present enough to be able to look at these things from the distance, right? Without being fully immersed in the experience. So the first step is to acknowledge, right? So this activated something real in me. When this happened to me. And then trying to extract that information, right? From that, the more specific you can be about the experience, the better. Because if it's a general thing, it's going to be very difficult for you to dissect it. But if you can find a specific moment, like with my partner Samantha, many times we have a dialogue and we are bringing to that dialogue the specific sentence that triggered us. I may say, when you said this and you used this tone of voice and you did this with your body, I felt this and I needed to do this. So this is how rich it can become if you can really understand and be aware of the specific moment, action, tone of voice, body language, etc., that trigger you. Maybe a smell, maybe a noise, maybe a kind of look. So you can become more specific and you can extract more information, right? So the step 2 is to extract the gold, extract the wisdom, the information from that experience, right? So what did you learn? What boundary or truth became clear for you in that moment? And then what do you choose moving forward? And this is using that contrast exercise that I was talking about. Once you discover what you didn't like, what made you feel unsafe, what made you feel rejected, whatever information you extracted, so what do you want to do moving forward? And then you close the energetic loop, right? So you tell the body that the moment is over, and this becomes something that has to be somatic. This has to be in your nervous system because you have to embody something different. It's not enough to think about it. You have to actually come to another present moment that is similar and be able to don't react the same way. And this is where change starts to happen, right? Because remember, change happens from a quantum perspective. Change happens not when the thing outside changes. When you change how you react to that thing, that's when change is happening. Because that thing is going to be there. You cannot change something external to you. You cannot change a person. You cannot change a situation. You cannot change what other people are choosing to do. You can only control how you react, the meaning that you give to that experience, and how you choose to feel with that experience. So you will notice that even though the same thing is happening, you are reacting differently. And that's when you know that change is happening, because you are physically embodying something different and you are actually emotionally feeling different. So that's how you can address these things, right? So Marjorie says how to address the person when they are triggered and shift perspective from blaming and criticizing you. Yeah, so this is a very good example, Marjorie. And when you can be quantum and you can be neutral and you can understand and respect that everybody's having their own experience, then you can detach yourself from that person and you can understand, wow, that person is going through a trigger. This person, clearly I am mirroring something back to them and they are becoming aware of something or they are feeling something, but it has nothing to do with me. If they feel unsafe and they need to criticize me, this is all about them. It's not about me. So then you don't get involved. And then you can be conscious enough, you can hold space, and then you can allow that person to have the experience that they need. Of course, you are not going to tolerate abuse or dumping. You can set your boundaries, but you can learn how to navigate the dynamic differently. You can learn what you need in that experience. You can learn if you can handle it or not. You have the right to say, I don't have capacity for this right now. I'm not the right person to do this. I am not willing to go there with you. Like, you have the right to do all those things if you want and choose, right? So it's always your choice, right? I am hesitant to enter into a relationship for fear of getting emotionally hurt. Yeah, so Caroline, this is an example of you having a belief system, most likely because you did get hurt in the past, and you are putting the lens of relationships equal getting emotionally hurt. I'm not saying that it cannot be true, but I also know a lot of relationships that are the opposite. So you need to challenge that, and you need to decide if that's what you want to believe or not. You have 100% the right to believe what you want. And remember, from a quantum perspective, there is not a right or wrong approach. You choose what feels best for you. So if you choose not to get into a relationship because you don't want to get hurt, and that feels true to you, and that feels aligned with you, and that's what you truly want, what's the problem? The problem is when you don't feel well with that decision, when part of you wants to be in a relationship, but part of you believes that it's not going to be safe. And then part of you wants the commitment and the presence of another person, but then part of you believes that that's going to trigger things that you won't know how to manage. So if that's the case, then you know that this is a classroom for you. You know that actually you entering relationships is going to be something that is going to help you learn more about what you want and what you don't want. And you can do that in a safe way. You can set boundaries. You can do it in many different ways, right? But again, there is not a right or wrong approach, and you get to choose what feels good for you. But I will challenge that anything that you believe to be true, just make sure that it is, and make sure that you feel well with that decision. But it's very normal to feel fear, right? If you got hurt in the past, it's very normal to don't want to enter that same experience anymore. So Caroline says, it's a dual thought, like you say, wanting a relationship, yet hesitating. So because you are sharing that, Caroline, I know in my heart that it's not true that you don't want a relationship. I know in my heart that you don't want to get hurt. I also know in my heart that relationships involve learning, involves most likely triggering each other and having to repair. It involves clear communication. It involves a lot of depth that you won't have if you are alone. So the question is, do you want that or not? Are you willing to do that work or not? And sometimes you don't want to do that, and that's the truth for you. But I don't sense that that's the truth for you because you are hesitant. And you do want a part of it, but you don't want the part that you don't like. So this is what the quantum journey is all about, right? We are always learning. We are always trying to find what's best for us in every moment. And hopefully these conversations are helping with clarity and are helping with next steps. So how do you embody the new frequency? Once you understand what is it that I want, so how do you embody that, right? So then you visualize yourself and then ask yourself, how would I breathe if I were already aligned, if I was already doing that? How will I breathe? How will I stand? How will I speak? How will I present myself? What will I talk about? What will be my tone of voice? So what does now feel like without dragging the past with me? So how does it look like to step into a situation where I am truly choosing what I want, not letting my past experience impact how I am showing up? And this is where energy will shift. This is where you are going to be able to be fully present, be fully mindful, be fully in the moment. And I know it's very difficult. I understand. I cannot be in the moment. Well, it's impossible for me to be always in the moment fully because I'm always bringing my past. I'm always bringing triggers. I'm always taking things personally. I feel abandoned. I feel attacked. I feel not wanted. And that clearly impacts me, and it impacts how I feel about myself, and it impacts how I relate to my partner, to my daughter, to the people around me. But that's the work, right? To catch yourself, come back to the present moment, ground, remind yourself, what is it that I want? What is important for me? What am I choosing consciously, not unconsciously? How can I stop reacting and choosing from a place of integrity and from my true self? And then from that point, you keep practicing, because we don't know how to do it. We are always learning something new. We are always embodying something new, and hopefully stop doing what's familiar, stop doing what we have repeated forever, and start doing something different that we just need to learn how to do it because we have never done it before. Like for some of you guys, if you were if you were in an environment where you were growing up where being avoidant emotionally was the norm, and then you have an attachment style that is avoidant because that's what you learned, that's what you were modeled, that's what the dynamic of your household was like, that was your family pattern. So when you are looking for a partner, you are gonna most likely choose something avoidant because that's what's familiar to you, that's what you understand. And sometimes you may even feel attracted to that. And sometimes you feel, wow, this is really good attraction, but sometimes it's attraction because that's what you understand. And if someone comes and says, hey, you have to change your attachment style from being avoidant to being secure, and this is how it looks like. So you are always available, you don't take things personally, you don't need the other person to change, you don't avoid, and you are not anxious. So it tells you all the theory, but then in your body, your nervous system is not going to do that right away. It's just going to react how it knows, the habitual way, right? So you just have to learn how can I become secure? Well, it's going to be a journey. You're going to discover how to do that. You're going to fail 1,000 times, but it's not failing. It's really learning, this doesn't feel good, this didn't work out, this is not what I want. And then you keep realigning, keep knowing more about you, keep discovering what feels good, keep learning how to set boundaries, learning how to speak up, learning how to trust yourself. So it's a journey that you get to explore and do. And it takes time. It takes time, guys, and repetition and presence. Yeah, so we have 10 minutes left. So I want to talk about the concept of post-traumatic wisdom, because I think this is really important. And again, don't get stuck in the words, okay? So you are not meant to erase experiences and forget about them. You are meant to integrate them in a way that feels good for you, right? So you get to keep the wisdom, but you don't get to keep the wound, okay? You let the experience inform you, okay? But you don't let that inhabit you. So you don't have to stay stuck in that experience. And then you update your signal instead of keep repeating the past. Okay? So this is a really important concept, because from a quantum perspective, what we call trauma, what we'll call a negative experience, it's something that has helped you become more clear about what you don't want and become more clear about what you do want. And how many inspiring people do you know that they had horrible experiences, but they were able to learn a lot from them, and they were able to grow a lot like people because of those experiences, and now they are thriving, right? Some people didn't do it. Some people stay stuck in those experiences, and they were always. But some people actually use those experiences to be able to grow. And there is this concept that says the deepest you go into the dark, the more you are going to be sprinting to the light. So meaning, like, the darker you can get, the more light you are going to be able to experience. And this is, again, the contrast, right? If you get to experience something really dark, really negative, really something that you don't want or prefer, then you are going to be able to appreciate the opposite way more, because otherwise you wouldn't know what that looks like, or what you wouldn't learn from that experience. So how can we apply all these things in our relationships day to day? Some very simple, very easy to kind of write down and remember. So one, pause before reacting. Just this one alone, if you are not able to pause, you are already dysregulated. When I feel the need that I have to do something, say something, I'm already gone. I don't feel safe. I am not grounded. I lost myself in the experience and I am reacting. So when I can come back and say, okay, I can take a pause. I can take a couple of deep breaths. I don't need to act immediately. So that's the first one, be able to pause before reacting, right? Second one is to regulate your body. Before you enter a relationship, before you enter a dynamic, before you enter a conversation, especially if it's a difficult one, make sure that you are grounded. Make sure that you are in your body. And that may look different for all of you, right? Number 3, get curious instead of defensive. Just get curious. Remember that sometimes what's happening is not about you. You are not responsible. You don't have to fix it. Maybe someone else's experience. And if you can be curious and you can pause and you don't react, all of a sudden you are creating presence, creating safety. You are creating a container of space and time for that person to be seen in their experience, and how such a beautiful gift if we can do that for others, right? Decide consciously how much attention this deserves. Remember, if you notice that you are stuck in always thinking, obsessing about something, that is not the way. And if you find yourself avoiding something 100%, remember to come back to the middle ground, right? How can I do this without avoiding and without obsessing? And just get curious about that. And then choose the frequency that you want to embody next. So from a point of view of, I am in the present moment, I am grounded, I am detached from the experience, I don't need to do anything reactively. So from that place, what do you choose? You choose to stay there? You choose to set a boundary? Do you choose to leave? And always, when there is that space and that pause, and you can breathe, and you can accept what's happening, and you understand that it is not your job to fix anything, and there is nothing demanded from you unless the other person is clearly asking for that, most likely you are making it's a belief system that you may have, and you're making a projection. So if you can just detach from everything and be present, then you get to choose what feels best for me right now. What do I need? And then trust your intuition when that happens. If you have an impulse that feels true to you, honor it. And then presence is what allows everything else to work. Remember, being able to be present is what's going to make everything else fall into place. Because when you are being present and you don't need to react and you don't need to control and you can accept what's happening and you are just observing what's happening, from that place, everything is just going to work out. And you don't have to work that hard. You don't have to control. You don't have to feel unsafe. You just trust. Everything is going to work out the way it needs to. I am fully present here. I trust myself. I trust that if there is something I need to do, I will feel it and I will take action. But it's not a reactive action. It's an inspired action. Okay? So these are some of the practical ways that we can use to bring this into our relationships. And now it's a matter of putting this into practice, right? In my own life, I notice when I am obsessing. I can notice when I am avoiding. I can notice when I'm making a projection. Like the other day, I was upset with Samantha for something, and then I went to her and I say, I think you need space, so I'm just gonna leave. And then I left the motorhome and I went for a walk, and then I came back and then she told me, listen, don't project on me. I didn't need you to leave. I needed space, but that didn't mean that I had I want you to leave. You can stay here, but I just didn't want to be. So I was projecting, and then I took it personally, and then I felt abandoned and unwanted, and all that was going on through my head. And as you can imagine, in that moment, I was feeling, emotionally speaking, I wasn't feeling empowered. I wasn't feeling grounded. I wasn't feeling like my true self, because I was being wounded. So being able to just come back and say, okay, that happened. And then we were able to do an Imago dialogue. That's the tool that we use for communication to create safety. And we have a course that we created, if you are curious. Just presence. How can we come back to presence? How can we see each other's experience? How can we kind of pick and understand what happened? The triggers, the story that you were telling yourself, the story that I was telling myself, how that played out in a dynamic between two people in a relationship. And then what do I want to choose moving forward? And that's a beautiful way to kind of put everything into practice. And I hope that this is something that you can do in your life with your partner, with your friends, with your family members, and co-workers, people that you meet along the way. So yeah, that's those are some examples. Love that. You get to keep the wisdom. You don't need to keep the wound. Yeah, Peta. And BD says, presence allows everything to work out. Yeah. Yeah, guys. So thank you so much for being here today, for being willing to have these conversations. Thank you so much, BD, for your donation. If you guys can support my work, as always, I'm very grateful to receive some of your abundance. And next week, we're going to be taking this to the next level. And we are going to talk about quantum sexuality. And as you will learn, when we enter the sexual arena, the intimacy, kind of physical connection, everything gets amplified very, very quickly. And there is opportunity to get hurt, but there is also beautiful opportunities to heal and to be seen in ways that you cannot be seen by someone else. There is a depth of vulnerability and presence that you enter when you enter that intimate sexual arena that you don't get to access with regular relationships. So I really think it's worth to shine the light on that. And I think it's really important because in my experience, I have had a lot of healing in that area of my life. And I think it's important to talk about it. So yeah, so thank you, BD. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Lori and Sati and Caroline. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Jeffrey, so much for your donation. And before we go, do you guys want to share what was your main takeaway, or what is the most inspiring thing that you are willing to try next when it comes to your relationships? What is something that you know you are going to try and that you are excited about? Just to end the session. What is that? Kelly says super growth. Thank you, Kelly. Pausing. Amazing. Pausing. Yeah, so visualize how that looks like, right? Pause before reacting. Amazing, Samantha. I am going to review my attachment style. Beautiful, BD. That is a beautiful way to become aware of changing my mindset in general. Amazing, Catherine. I'm not sure what that really means. It's very general, but I guess it makes sense for you, so that's amazing. Remember, the more specific and the more precise, the easier it is for you to visualize yourself doing that, the more likely is it going to be for you to make it a reality. Okay? Look at my trigger as growth opportunity. Yeah. Breathing and grounding. Amazing. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, guys, have an amazing weekend, and I hope to see you next week. on Friday, where we are going to be talking about quantum sacred sexuality. Okay? Hope to see you there if you can make it. Okay? Amazing. Have a wonderful rest of your day, guys. Adios.